What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Today's video, we're gonna switch gears a little bit. No more 49 on this video. We're actually gonna work on the 70 Nova today. And it's nothing major. I just have to fix a coolant leak under the hood. It's kind of kept me from wanting to drive it too much because it keeps leaking antifreeze. And all it is a thermostat housing gasket. I had an O-ring type housing on it, and I had it on and off so many times during the build process that I actually flattened out the O-ring on it, and no matter how tight I get it now, it just keeps leaking coolant. So we're actually gonna take the O-ring out of the housing and just go with an old school paper type gasket on it with some RTV. So basically that's all I'm gonna kind of do in this video. It's gonna be a hodgepodge of me working on the Nova, and I'm gonna kind of do a garage review today with everything else that we got going on out here. As you guys can see, we have a lot going on in the garage all the time. So I'll kind of give you guys an update on some of the other cars, and yeah, and then we will actually be going out and doing some drive and road testing on the Nova. So I know you guys want to see that. So let's get that gasket fixed and can pull that thing outside and fire it up. So let's get into it. So for all you guys that are new to the channel, if you're not familiar with this car, this is my 1970 Nova that I've owned for many years. Kind of just built it here and there through the years. And if you guys really want to see quite a bit of the build videos, go check out the playlist on this car. There's quite a few videos that I've done on it. Last summer, it had a 383 stroker small block in it, and I was having some issues with the rings in that engine not seating. It was a fresh rebuilt motor with very low miles, but we just couldn't get the rings to seat in it. I still have that engine, but I ended up building a big block Chevy that I had sitting around, and we slapped that in it last summer. And I think I've got about 600 miles on this setup right now. And it's been running really good. So you guys should check out the other videos on the car where I put together that engine and fired it up for the first time. It's a pretty sweet little motor. But real quick, this is, like I said, it's a 1970 Nova. I did a Detroit Speed mini tub kit on the back of it. And it's got the Detroit Speed subframe connectors. It's got their whole Detroit Speed leaf spring rear suspension with the 3-inch drop leafs on it. It does have we put a narrowed Ford 9-inch rear end in it with 370 gears. It's got a 4-speed Muncie in it. And like I said, a big block. It's actually a 71 402 big block Chevy that's been punched out 60 over. So it's actually like a 413 now. So it hits pretty good. I put all new cam and valve train in it from Comp Cams. It's got a 550 lift. I think it's like a 282 or 284 duration on the cam. So it sounds really good. It's got full headers on it. It runs really well. It's got a ton of low end torque on it for the street. It does real well with that rear end that's in this. What else did I do? I put a full Ride Tech front suspension on it. You guys can see it's got the adjustable coilovers in it, the Ride Tech stuff. It's got their strong arms on it. It's got their huge sway bar down there. Pretty much the whole Ride Tech front suspension out of their catalog on it. We did the Detroit Speed firewall shave kit on it. It's got Detroit Speed solid billet subframe mounts. It's got solid motor mounts. This thing shakes like a race car. There's really no rubber bushings anywhere on the drivetrain. It's all solid mounted. It's got an Edelbrock RPM intake. It's got an MSD Pro Billet distributor. I put a Gilmer belt drive on it. So you guys can see that down in there. It's got the wide belt on it, which is pretty slick. Put the low mount alternator mount on it. So I pretty much cleaned the whole top of the engine up, which I like. All you can see is motor on it. Really made it, gave it a really clean look. What else did I put on it? It's got a Delta PAG cooling fan I put in it. That thing rocks. It keeps this thing very cool. I love that thing. Works really well. You guys let me know if any of you guys are running the Delta PAG radiator fans. Let me know how you guys like yours. I really like this thing. I mean, it never ever gets hot in this thing. I can run it as hard as I want and it never gets hot. MSD ignition. That's pretty much it. It's not too radical. It's just a nice little street, big block. And of course, a new 4-quart radiator. But as you guys can see, you can see the 2 little puddles of coolant that this thing just keeps leaking and leaving in my intake every time I drive it. It doesn't leak while I'm driving. It warms up, it seals. But after I shut it off and it cools down, it always leaves those 2 little puddles there on the back side. So today we're just gonna throw a new gasket, some RTV on each side, and seal that thing up, hopefully for the last time. That's the only leak on this whole engine. Like, it doesn't leak oil, it runs really good. It's just gotta fix this little coolant leak and it should be good to go mechanically. The tire and wheel setup on this, got an old school set of torque thrusts on it. They're 15x8s in the back with a 275/60 BF Goodrich DOT drag radial. And I think these are like 225s in the front, or 215/65 15s in the front. So kind of a big and little setup. There's way more room in the back of this thing. I had 295s on it and it fit with room to spare. So eventually I've got another set of 10-inch wide wheels over here that I'm gonna eventually get a set of 295/65 15s for. Those are going on it next. I just got to get the front 15, or actually I'm gonna run a 17x4 in the front with these 15x10s in the back. You can see they're pretty wide. So that's gonna really fill up that back wheel well the way I want it. So those are coming soon. And this car I'm gonna start the paint process on it soon. So this body's gonna get painted this summer. I'm gonna go with a silver on it. So yeah, you guys will see all that going on. That's not too far off. So let's go ahead and get into this gasket. It shouldn't take much. I'm gonna drain the coolant down just a little bit into my pan down there, just enough to get that upper hose off. And then we'll throw a gasket on it and get her filled back up. And I'm gonna pull this thing outside and you can hear it fire up. So let's get to fixing it. So we'll start with just breaking the drain loose on this radiator and getting some of this coolant out of the top of the motor. Clean up those puddles of coolant on the intake. This little leak worried me though every time I drive it, because you never know when it's going to turn from a small leak into a full-on blowout while you're driving down the road. Next thing you know, steam's everywhere and you got a huge mess under the hood. Car's overheating. Yeah, this car is super fun to drive. Since I switched from the small block to the big block, this engine runs really well. I would love to put a 200 shot of nitrous on this thing too. That'd be really fun. I'm expecting this thing probably has close to the 400 horsepower range, maybe a little more or less. But a 200 shot of nitrous on this thing would make it all sorts of fun. gonna get the radiator drained down below the intake line here, and then once we're down there, we can just pop this off real easily and throw that gasket on. Shouldn't take much to get it down below that line. Also, I didn't say earlier, but this thing's got a 750 Demon carb on it, which it runs okay. I think I'd rather have a Holly on here, which I might upgrade to a Holly soon. I mean, this one, it runs pretty good, but I think a Holly would run a little harder. You guys should let me know what you think. Like, what do you got on your cars, and what carb do you guys prefer? While that's draining, I'll show you guys the interior of this thing. I did replace all of the panels, so it's actually pretty nice in here. It's full interior. Bench seat, 4-speed, autometer gauges, all new dash pad, new headliner, full back seat, which is nice that you can still retain the full back seat with the mini tub kit that we put in it. I like the autometer gauges that we went with too on this car. It's nice to have that over the big stock sweeping gauge. No RPM, no accessory gauges. I hate that. But yeah, this car is in good shape inside. And it's nice to have a nice full interior on a street car. Alright, I have the hose off. I'm just gonna break these loose. Probably drain down far enough where we can pop this off without making a mess. And then I'll probably be able to see where that stupid O-ring is flattened out underneath there. Just not a fan of these. I wish I wouldn't even have got it this style anyways. I don't run a thermostat in this car. I run a restrictor too. Just sits right in there. But yeah, this O-ring right here is so flattened out. It's not, no matter how much I tighten the bolts, it was not sealing. It just kept oozing out. So we're gonna go ahead and just eliminate the O-ring altogether and just run a housing gasket on it. So after I got the O-ring out, it looks like it was damaged right along this area here. There's some chunks missing, and overall the profile of it is just, the top of it is completely flattened off. It's just not round anymore. So we're just gonna eliminate this whole situation, run a paper housing gasket with some RTV. It shouldn't be an issue again, hopefully. Yeah, I tried to run a 180, and then I also put a 160 degree stat in this thing, and it was still having overheating problems. Like it didn't like the restriction that the thermostat was causing in the system. So I went over to I think it's All-Star Performance, or Moroso also offers these, and all they are is a basic restrictor plate that slows down the flow, kind of like a thermostat does, but obviously it doesn't open and close or change. So I don't drive this car in the winter and cold months, and it doesn't even have heat and AC in it, so there's no need for a thermostat in it. Restrictor plates work very well in this situation. So it slows the coolant flow down just enough for it to have enough time to cool down in the radiator and then go back through the motor. So I found out this size restrictor plate with this radiator, it works really well with my cooling fan. So I'm just gonna stick with that setup. So basically just got a Velcro thermostat housing gasket for it. We're just gonna plop that bad boy on there. With the housing, which even though it was an O-ring style, this thing is completely flat when tightened down. So that paper gasket should work just fine. I'm just gonna put a little bit of RTV on the back and the top side just for a little bit of insurance. All right, so we put a bead of RTV on both sides of the gasket. Go ahead and put that in place carefully so don't make a mess. And then we're going to drop the housing on. Just gonna snug it down just slightly and get it all in place and then torque it. So let's make sure the gasket's centered. Housing looks good. Can't torque it until hook the hose up. Another reason I don't like these adjustable ones. Of course, my hose clamp's stuck to the hose like it's glued. There, Jesus. Slide that back. Now we can start torquing this down a little. Make sure our hose is seated correctly. Now we can finish torquing it. Don't have to kill it. I know it's easy to do when you really want something to seal and be tight. I think that's pretty good. Hose looks good. Clamp back in place. Work that down. I love that position, but I hate using worm clamps. I need to upgrade to the more smooth style, but it is what it is. There. All right, that should do it. Get this thing filled back up with coolant and should be able to fire it up. All right, let's get this thing filled back up. Hopefully I don't spill everywhere. Sure I will. It's actually a pretty nice drain pan. It's got a nice spigot or whatever you call it there on the end that lets it flow pretty easy. If I pull this off without spilling, it'll be a first. I always spill oil, antifreeze, brake fluid, you name it. If it's a liquid, I can't usually pour it in without spilling it. This is the first, people. Don't want that, whatever that is in there. Wow, what do you know? I did it without spilling it. You guys all witnessed it. Not a drop. Alright, looks like it's pretty full. I probably will have to add a little more in there because it's been leaking. I think I've got some too, so let's see. Yeah, that'll be good for now. I probably need to pick some up. So we'll call that good. Cap it off. And I think this thing's about ready to go. So we'll get it pushed outside and fire it up. I know a lot of you guys that know this car love to hear this thing run. So, and I know that if you haven't seen it or heard this car run, it sounds really good. So we'll get it pulled outside and fire it up, make sure there's no leaks. All right, so we got the thermostat gasket in. We're gonna go ahead and get this thing fired up, see if there's any leaks in the cooling system, and bring it up to temp. And then if it doesn't leak, we can go out and run this thing around a little bit, put some heat in it and put a few more miles on it and make sure it's not gonna leak anymore. So let's go ahead and get it fired up. Looks like we're doing pretty good. I don't see any leaks. It's all dry back there. Nothing's pissing. So we're gonna go ahead and I guess go road test it now. I'm gonna let it come up to temp and take you guys for a ride in this thing. And then we'll see if any more problems persist after that. Do a walk around so you guys can hear the exhaust. Yeah, she sounds good. That big block rumbles nicely. All right, I guess we'll take it out for a spin now and see how she runs. All right, here we go. Shaky camera. This thing's so cammed out, no matter where I mount that camera, it just shakes. All the solid motor mounts, solid subframe mounts, this thing shakes around like crazy. Well, that's the way I like it. pressure, staying cool, charging system's working good. Definitely since I got this thing put back together, it's happy, you know? I guess it just wants to live. So we're just gonna run into town here, put some fuel in it, and I'll probably check it again under the hood. I'm sure it's fine, but just to be safe. And then we'll go find a back road and do a few burnouts. I'm just getting to the point in this thing where I feel comfortable, you know, taking it up and dumping the clutch in it. I've done it a few times. Like I said, this thing's only got 582 miles on this big block setup. That's how fresh it is. I've got about 1,000 or 1,200 miles on everything else. Like I said, I put it together with that small block 383, and I put about 600 miles on that thing before I realized it was messed up. So this engine is still really fresh. Like I said, just over that 500 mile mark, but it seems to be good. So yeah, we'll go, like I said, we're gonna put some fuel in it and then go see what kind of trouble we can get into. All right, well, we got her fueled up. I'm gonna pop the hood here and see if we got any leaks going on. Looks pretty dry and good. Yeah, I don't see anything. No more puddles. You can see where the antifreeze like ate my paint off my intake, so I'm gonna have to touch that up. That'll drive me nuts. A little bit there too. But yeah, it's dry as can be. Looks good. You can hear that, how quiet that Delta PAG fan is, and that thing just rocks. If you guys are looking for a good cooling fan, that's definitely a good choice. Check them out online. Delta PAG. They're freaking awesome. It's a brushless fan, that's why it's quieter than most. And it puts out like almost 4,000 CFM. But yeah, no, everything looks good. So we're gonna go cruise this thing and see what happens. So let's get her closed up. She's ready to rock. This thing fires up really easily too. That's it, look at that. Just boom. Smoothness. Temp looks good. Oil pressure's good, nice and warmed up. Cooling's good. So yeah, let's go rock this thing. I know a back road right over here we can kind of do some testing on. It's not too far away. You guys see me steering this thing with some effort. It's because it's a manual steering, manual brakes. No frills, man, no frills, no modern conveniences in this car. It's all business. Sorry about the shaky camera, man. This thing it shakes when we're sitting still. And I don't have a camera person. 6,000. See what she does here. That's for sure. That was probably about 6,300. Wow. She loves it. That thing got it. No traction at all. Totally just busted the tires loose immediately. No hook. Wow. That big block's got all sorts of torque. Man, that is fun. It felt good too. Nothing felt weird. She's still cool. Good oil pressure. Man, that was fun. Yeah, I can't get over how well this car drives and runs. Everything works as it should. Yep, she runs good. Really good. I'm just impressed. This thing, the lower end on this engine on this big block, it was, I basically bought it in a package, and the short block on it was already assembled, so it was a running engine. All I did was go through and put a set of freshened up heads and all new valve train in it, which I went with, like I said, a comp cam and springs and you know, all new push rods and lifters and rocker arms. Pretty much put a whole new freshened top end on it. Man, it runs really good. That 370 gear in the back is just right for the street. Runs nice. Finally got nice in my part of the country, which we're in the Midwest, the upper Midwest, and winter is just now breaking. So it's about mid-50s today and sunny. The car likes it. It's not too hot. So just beautiful out. Finally a break from winter. Finally get our toys out. Start enjoying the outdoors again. Can't tell you how much the winters here bother me, you know. We pretty much have to put away our cars and toys for like half a year almost, depending on how the winter goes. But man, I'm over it. I absolutely hate winter. Being a car guy, you know, I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate with that. I need to move down south or out west. That way I can drive them all year round. Jealous of you guys who get to do that. this summer, putting a bunch of miles on it, continue to shake it down, do some tweaks to it. I really want to put a nicer, newer Holley carb on it, maybe some nitrous, and definitely want to get those new tires and wheels on it, the wider back tires, so it can actually hook up. These are 275s. I want to go to a 295 in the back. And of course I'm going to be painting it, so you guys will see that soon. So it's going to kind of transform into a different looking car on the outside. It'll have new paint, new wheels, new tires. I just wanted to get the car mechanically shaken down before I start making it look pretty. I wasn't sure if, you know, the engine or whatever was going to have to come back out, and there's nothing worse than having to take your engine back out of your car just after you put a fresh, pretty paint job on it. So that was my whole plan of this thing, was get it mechanically shaken down, everything's working, running good, and then paint it. So that's kind of what we're doing. Even though I do have another big block, a 454, that I would like to put in this thing to replace this 402. You know, there's no replacement for displacement. So we're almost back to the house, so I'm gonna pull in here and then we'll get some more underhood shots, make sure everything is looking good under there, and hopefully this thing is good to go now. Well, we'll see here in a second. Really? All you want to do is bite. Ow. So it ran good. No coolant leaks. I'm gonna let her cool down a little bit. It's not hot. I have my fans on a manual control, so I can just leave them on when I park it. Pretty much just a toggle switch. That's why the fans are on. It's not overheating. I just like to make sure it gets cooled down when I shut it down, so it doesn't heat soak. But yeah, no coolant leaks. Looks good. Yeah, it runs good too. So I think that's a win. So as of right now, this thing is mechanically stable, I would call it. The 49 Chevy's sitting over here waiting for some love too. I don't even know really. I mean, there's so many things to do on this thing next. It's hard to figure out which direction to go in. Said, if you guys watched the last video, we dropped the LS engine in it. So that thing's sitting in there now, bolted into the motor mounts. There's no trans on it, so I gotta still clean up my transmission over there and put a layer of paint on it. Dab it in there. So quite a lot of work to do to this thing still. I gotta order a lot of parts for it too to really move it forward. We got my brother's 59 Bel Air, which is pretty close to being roadworthy. He just motor swapped it. We just put that fresh 283 in it. Getting ready to fire that up. This car is actually gonna be for sale, so he says when he's done with it. So if any of you guys are interested in it, you can hit me up in my messages. I'm not sure of the price on it yet. It's fully bagged. He just put new hubcaps on it. Did the motor swap, so the engine trans is all fresh. Suspension's all new. Like I said, it's got 4 corner bags. Pretty cool car. Pretty much kind of like a rat rod style. It's got just a kind of a stripped down interior. Original dash is all there and gauges, bench seat. But yeah, this thing will be roadworthy soon. So you'll probably see some videos on that. We get a lot going on out here. The 71 Corvette is mechanically finished almost. See it's a big block 4-speed car. Just getting all the small details worked out before we start the body and paint on it. You can see the two C2 Corvettes that have been on the channel. There's the 64 that we painted. That thing's pretty much just wrapped up and done. It's just sitting there looking pretty now. The 65. I think I've got videos of this when we painted it years ago. I think there's a couple of videos on there. Maybe not though, I can't remember. It's been so long. That one's a complete car. Those are both really nice cars. Both had frame off restorations done. The Chevelle's over there, 67 Chevelle, big block 4-speed. That thing's a finished car, it's a driver. And we got one more C3 here, 76. These cars have all been around the family a long time. This one's got a fresh motor in it. This car's had a frame off restoration done to it too. It's all brand new underneath. So definitely a lot of work going on out here over the years. As you guys can see, there's cars everywhere. So that's pretty much gonna wrap up this video. I just wanted to get the Nova coolant leak fixed, and we did. Runs good. And now I can kind of just cruise it this summer. Like I said, we're gonna start the paint process on it soon. But I'm gonna try to keep it as a driver while I'm doing that, so it's not down for very long. And stay tuned for more work on the 49 Chevy. Be lots more videos for that thing coming along. So you guys leave me some comments down below. Give me a thumbs up if you like the video. And if you're new to the channel, make sure that you guys subscribe. And I will see you guys on the next video. Later.